So we don't have to do the recording because that's for me.
Hey everyone, welcome to the pre-show. You just saw me washing or wiping my crotch off. You just missed that.
That's the point.
Tune in earlier for a pre-show we don't record. That's a higher Patreon tier.
Yeah, that's the $100 tier.
You get the live access to all of our camera feeds.
Yeah, crotch feed included.
Okay.
So behind the scenes for our pre-showers, there's two reasons I don't have a camera. One, I usually am shirtless, but two, actually, the camera I do have isn't like super high res. I don't like that. But then, like right now, I'm working with a brick of a computer, and I'm legit pissed off because we were supposed to get this bonus for the job I work. I work as a bus driver. Okay, hold up. Anyways, so I was supposed to get a bonus. Because I was self-employed for most of last year, I'm not really expecting tax return. So pretty much what I'm using is all I can really use it for. Because if I did have a camera, first I'd have to wear a shirt. Fuck that. No, I'm just kidding. I'd have to wear a shirt, but it would also take up a lot of my PC power, basically. And so then I'd have even more problems. And I already have problems right now. Like, for instance, for some reason on Audacity, like it'll stop recording for just like a millisecond every once in a while. So like we'll start synced up, and then like halfway through or 10 minutes later, sometimes 20 minutes later, it'll just depend or whatever. All of a sudden I'm off. And so whoever's editing needs to add just a little bit of silence, every like 10 minutes, basically, just to make sure that, like Nate doesn't make a joke and I start laughing before he makes the joke.
By the way, I figured out what the issue was.
Yeah, what's up?
You remember the time where Audacity was frozen when we were trying to resync?
Oh, yeah.
When we resynced at that point, when I put the audio together, you said one at the same time I was saying two.
Yeah.
So basically what I had to do is I had to add a second of silence to line it out. Yeah. But that's what the issue was, because I couldn't figure it out. I'm like, why is it still like so off? And it was because of that resync moment we didn't do go at the same time.
Yeah, see, that's what I was talking about before. Like all that really matters is the 1-2, which is the whole point of the 1-2, is to get us synced back up or whatever. Everything before, no matter when you stop or when I stop or whatever, that doesn't really matter. What matters is the 1-2. The 1-2 is how we resync or whatever. So yeah, that's all you really need to worry about technically. Okay, I don't know, because I haven't used Audition yet because I don't have a new freaking computer yet, but like, does Audition let you generate silence in the same way?
It's super easy. You go to edit, or you go to effects. Okay, so no, you go to edit, you go to insert, and then you go silence.
Okay. And so then can you just do like 0.5 or whatever?
Yeah,
because that's what Audacity did. Like, so when I was editing, that's usually all I did was, okay, it's been 10 minutes. Let me just add in a little silence.
And that's what I was saying last week when we were talking about the resyncing, is if we want to just keep it as is, like as far as just the recording, and then I just add the silence, that's easier for me.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, this time we can do that for the bonus cast. Especially since we have a guest for this time, I don't think I want to make her stop and then redo it. Like when it's just me, you, and like Link, for instance, I don't think it'd be a big problem, but for her, it would be nice to not make her have to do that.
I'm stuffing my face while Nick is monologuing.
Yeah.
Chowing down this bomb ass.
Chow. Show him.
Steak omelet. Sword chomp. Shout out.
No, show it. That's what I was saying. Show it.
Oh,
it's fucking baller.
There's not much left.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was huge. There was a lot to it, and like steak and shit. Oh my god, I'm jealous. I had shrimp legs with bacon. Oh yay!
You had shrimp legs with bacon? What?
I said scrambled eggs in bacon.
I thought you said you had shrimp legs with bacon. I'm like, what
that's what I had.
Oh my god, that was such a fucking funny joke.
Yeah. Tell him.
So basically, we were So wherever you guys live, if you guys live, in the South, or if you guys have crawfish where you're at, if you ever had crawfish, crawfish is something that I tried like whenever I was a kid because I used to love shrimp. I never had crawfish. Crawfish is I don't want to say it's dirty, but it's a very dirty fish to eat because I mean one of the things they tell you because you basically like crack open the crawfish and they'll talk about when you're peeling the shell to get the meat, there's like brown parts that's like poop in their tube, so they but I think because of the seasonings and everything anyway, so I like crawfish. My wife got me some beef jerky from a local shop, and one of them was a stick of boiled crawfish beef jerky. And it tasted really, really, really good. And I was telling them about it whenever we had our meeting earlier, and about how like it didn't taste super fishy at all. And Link had made a joke about something like craw without the fish or something like. Oh, Nick said, "Is that like some kind of shrimp?" I was like, "Yes, that's shrimp with level 2 armor." Oh man.
All right. Let me see. All right, let me pull up Audacity. We will get started.
Started.
Okay.
I'm going.
Done? All right. Cool. To Audacity. I think we'll do the same thing for the editor. We won't resync. I think we'll just do it.
Just tell them to add.
Yeah. Just tell them like
every second of silence.
Yeah, every 10 minutes add 5 seconds.
5 seconds or half a second?
0.5 seconds. Usually that's all you have to do.
So that's a half a second.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's what I'm saying. You said 5 seconds. I was like, I don't want him to get confused.
0.5 seconds. You probably just didn't hear the point.
I didn't get the point. Ding.
You didn't get the point. Hey-o. All right, you ready?
Yes.
Were you looking for Jesus?
Yeah. Jesus.
There you go, sir. My gardening needs done.
Josue. Where you at?
I am
was super
racist American.
Yeah, that was super
And I'm not even the one from the South. Hey-o. I am a red state, though. I'm like deep red state. Like,
oh, yeah.
One thing that's very, very disheartening about living in Idaho because we're so deep red, and I'm just like, I wouldn't call myself blue by any means, but I'm definitely not red. So, like I don't know.
Are you a conservative financially, a liberal socially? That's kind of what I am. Like, I don't agree with any of the legislative properties, like in terms of, except for legalization. Like when it comes to things financially, I think the Republicans are more apt to it. But when it comes to social things like legalization or like, gay marriage and anything like that, like I'm way more liberal in that sense.
Yeah, I don't know. Like the more, and it's been ever since obviously 2016 or whatever. But it's like the more I get into like the Republican side of shit, it's just like you guys are just really scummy. Like
that's how I felt about the Democrats last year or last election.
No, right? I feel like okay, one thing that I really don't like about an average Republican, I want to be very clear just in case somebody's a Republican out there. I'm not ragging on you specifically, but like an average like Republican is very like Christian, is very they're just
you're stereotypical Republican.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're not that person, just let me be clear. But they're very Christian, and yet they voted for a guy like Donald Trump, who is so clearly, like, I don't know, does the Bible have specific verses where you're supposed to be a racist bigot? Because he's so clearly that, and yet people are like, oh, no, he's just speaking his mind. It's like, I don't know, like,
Well, see that whole thing that's what got me during the election was there was a lot of conjecture. Like I can see the argument for him being a racist bigot, especially when it comes to Hispanics and the whole immigration thing. But the thing that got me was people taking that part and blowing it up, saying that he was just an outright racist bigot on everyone, talking about how he hated blacks and all this stuff. And then you saw stuff come out. It's like, well, that's just not true. Like, there's no genuine actual proof of that claim. I can see the mindset of him being racist bigot towards Hispanics, but him just being an outright racist bigot, no one has ever been able to give me an exact point where he was an outright racist. I mean, not fucking David Duke over here.
Yeah, I mean, if you take certain things that he said in the past, he's a racist in general, because you have the whole line about shithole, which, even if it's true, it's just like, you're supposed to be the president. You're supposed to be poised and, so we're getting super political here. Sorry, guys. Sorry, pre-showers. But he's supposed to be the president, which, I mean, obviously that's why he was voted for. He was voted for because he's not your typical president. But at the same time, it's like, I want my president to embody a certain amount of poise, a certain amount of, and just like calling someplace a shithole. And it's like, dude, like, what the hell?
Yeah. Also, he's especially maybe more during the election, but he was kind of being touted as a more liberal Republican candidate because of his stance on things like, gay marriage and things like that. Like, a lot of the things he was saying were against a lot of Republican beliefs. And so that kind of shocked me. Now, I haven't seen a whole lot since he's been elected of that same stuff. It was mostly while he was running.
Yeah, and
that's something that fascinated me.
Transgender or whatever, and saying like they can't be in the military.
That's a slippery slope. I don't know where I stand on that. I really don't.
I can totally agree with that. But my point is that him parading himself as somebody who supports, the LGBTQ community, but then turning around and doing that, it's very shady.
So
I can understand the position of like, there's a lot of medical expenses and stuff like that. I can understand that, but the way he went and see 90%, 99% of what he does, it's just the way he does it. Like, I can understand, okay, super controversial. We're going to go super controversial, but taking kids away at the border and from their parents, like, inherently, it's like, what if me and Ashley went and robbed a bank? They would take Zoe Ann away, right?
Mm-hmm.
So by coming into the country illegal, you are breaking the law. So yes, they're going to take your kids away. However, what the problem is obviously they're taking them away and putting them in detention centers, and it's like, and then like,
right,
the fact that somebody can ask you how many people have died and you're not able to get a right answer, that is fucked up.
Well, see, to give you context on my stance on that, whenever it was like the last year of Obama being president, when we had that whole thing where we were taking in a bunch of kids and taking in a bunch of people, I made a post on Facebook that was like, look, I'm all for helping these people out, but I remember what I said specifically was, I'm all for helping these people out. Like, that's totally fine. Like, I'm a humanitarian person. However, we come first. Like, it sounds like, and I was a little insensitive about it. I was like, if you are overextending yourself to help them, but not doing anything to help us, like if you're putting us in harm's way to help them, like that's a great humanitarian effort, but we've got shit here that we need to fix. Yes. Like, let's focus our attention to this instead of overextending a budget that we don't have to help these people. I know they're in need, but at the same time, you have to balance it out. Yeah. Now, the whole thing with, I'll get into it just very lightly. I'm in a very particular, like, I don't know where I'm at because, and this maybe just be because the science that we have right now as far as the whole transgender thing. But whenever all that stuff was going on, I was seeing a lot of military people that I trust that were like, look, I understand it seems insensitive, but I understand where he's coming from, because when you're in that mindset of you're in a firefight, you can't have any sort of weakness in your brain, any sort of thing going on that could affect how you are able to protect yourself and protect others. And the science that we have right now for most of what has been proven by science, or the stuff that we had, And of course, I'm not saying that being transgender is a mental issue, but there have been a lot of people that have proven that it's a weaker like mindset. Like there's something that's there that's causing them. So when that was going on, that was my first take of of like, I kind of understand where this is coming from, because in military, you can't have any sort of weakness that's going to put you or others in harm's way. Mm-hmm. So that's why I say the transgender thing is a very slippery slope, because there's correct on both sides. There's correct statements on both sides. So that is a way more nuanced issue than immigration.
Yeah.
And I can't like, I don't know. I really don't know. Like my stance on abortion is more apt than this.
Yeah, I feel like in most situations, if we could just come to a middle ground, that would be the best. But
we don't want to. That's the worst part.
Yeah,
you don't fucking want to.
If we because I can understand where you're coming from. And I can even to a certain extent understand where Donald Trump is coming from. But once again, 99% of what he does, it's how he does it.
Correct.
How he decides to do it. Him just outright, okay, no more transgender is like, well, what the fuck? Can't we talk about this? Like that's kind of where my mindset was. And then the same thing about immigration. It's like, okay, now like we have to be selective, because there are some genuine people that are trying to get away from being killed. They're seeking
asylum. Yeah,
exactly. And like the fact that you're just going to be like, no, go away. It's just like, or you're going to take their kids away. It's just, there are extenuating circumstances, and obviously if there's somebody wishing ill will on America, of course we don't want them in the country. That's a no-brainer. But then when it's like, hey, build a wall, it's like, okay, but you have all your intelligence agencies telling you one thing. Why in God's name are you not listening to them? You have all your scientists telling you that global warming is a real thing. And you're like, well, it's snowing in Chicago. So obviously that means like
that one I can't stand behind. And even Colin Moriarty, I remember him and a lot of other people that were, whenever the most recent global warming thing came out, him and someone from NOAA, I think it was some sort of government weather agency, was basically discrediting what someone was saying. They're like, look, you're setting a dangerous precedent. Actually, I think it was Philip DeFranco. He was like, you're setting a dangerous precedent. Like this is a real thing, and you're trying to discredit what someone is saying. Like that's how you spread misinformation.
Yeah, and see, this is the thing. Why is the question? Why would a scientist fake something like that? What benefits a scientist from faking global warming?
I think that all comes from Al Gore, because I remember the whole Al Gore thing back in the day. That did seem like for me as a kid, because I wasn't very old when all that stuff was going on, but for me as a kid, it seemed like that was him trying to gain popularity in a sense of like trying
what to. What do you mean by the Al Gore thing? Because I guess I'm a little.
The Al Gore, from my understanding, the whole global warming thing started with Al Gore. Like as far
not technically, but yeah.
Well, as far as in
popularize it.
Popularized in the mainstream of everyone talking about global warming, Al Gore touting this. And I remember at the time there were a lot of people like, I don't think discrediting him, but saying like, hey, like, I don't remember exactly what it was, but when I think of global warming, I think of Al Gore, because he was the one from what I saw growing up that popularized everyone talking about this. And to some people, it seemed like he was using that as a platform to gain higher up, basically. Now, like you could tell, like global warming is real. I mean, Texas has always had sporadic weather, but there's no fucking reason for one that we had a fucking day after tomorrow type snowstorm that affected the East Coast. Right. Like that's like credence in and of itself. But in Texas in particular, tell me fucking why. Like, so in Texas, basically we don't have seasons, but more often than not, like in years past, it's been like, oh, we'll have 4 to 5 weeks of summer and then it might get cold for a little bit, but it's literally gone 70, 80 for 3 days, 40, 50 for another. Then it starts raining, kind of sleeting. And then it goes back to 70, 80. Like that doesn't make any sense.
And I think it's the warming part that makes a lot of people be like, oh, well, it's snow or it's negative, whatever in Chicago or whatever. And it's like, okay, what I wish people would stop doing is calling it global warming, because what we really need to call it is climate change.
Yes.
Because what it really happens is that the summers are hotter and the winters are colder. But because you call it global warming, some dipshit like, I don't know, the president sees that it's negative whatever in Chicago, and he tries to use that as, well, see, it's not global warming. It's like, ugh. And it's like, if you would have read the report from your fucking scientist, your top leading scientist, then you would understand that. But since you didn't, because you don't know how to read, all
right, we should probably go ahead and get started.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, the thing is that there can be so many ways that I can agree with a Republican. So many ways. Okay, immigration. They broke a law, take their kids away. It seems so simple, right? But then it's the execution of it in 99% of the ways. It's like 99% of the tax kind of stuff that the Republicans want to do. It's like, oh, well, we don't want to tax our rich people because then they don't want to get rich. And I'm like, okay, I can understand that from a certain perspective. However, they are making more money than us. And if we did like 3% extra, or, if we stopped giving them so much fucking tax breaks, then we would be out of debt in like a couple of years. So like, but that's my point. It's just 99% of whatever Republicans do, I can totally agree with. It's just that sometimes at the cost of doing what they think is right, they're doing it in the wrong way, And it's like, I want to agree with them. I want to be on their side with, 50-50, that's why I'm such a centrist as well, because it's like, I agree with that, but I also agree with like a lot of like, I don't know, gun control should maybe be, a little bit heavier. But as soon as you say gun control, people are like, I don't want the government to take away my guns. And it's like, that's not what we're saying. We're not saying we're going to control your guns. If you're a good person, then we're not controlling your guns.
But the problem with that, because I'll have a heavy stance on this. The problem with that is you've got bad eggs. Like, for example, when Sandy Hook was going on, this fucking dipshit representative comes on stage. You've seen the video. I mean, it's like he holds up this like very militant looking M4. I think it was an M4. It looked like an M4. It didn't look like an AR-15, where he was like, this is a ghost gun, a 30-round clip with bullets. Like, he just didn't know what the fuck he was talking about. That's the problem I have with gun control is now there are a lot of people who are nuanced in the conversation, but the problem I have is on both sides. NRA, us on the right, are not having they're not having a conversation. There's some people that are trying and some people don't want it on this side, but we need to be like, hey, the people who know what the fuck they're talking about guns, let's get together and let's make legislation. It's just a fucking bickering fight. All right. I'm kind of done talking about politics.
Just explain to me why a United States citizen needs an AR.
No one needs an AR-15.
Exactly.
Yeah, no. And here's the thing. Most gun people will tell you that no one needs an AR-15. Do I want I've had an AR-15. It's fun to shoot. It's fun to just kind of have as a collector's item. Now, one thing I would say, hog. So Texas particular, we have a pest problem with hogs. So that's why hog hunting. So if you're curious about wildlife and the conservation stuff like that, watch Lone Star Law on Animal Planet, because it shows you a lot about that. But we have a lot of regulations for hunting. Hogs are the only thing we don't have a whole lot of regulations for. There's not hog season. It's basically in Texas, since it's so prevalent. Like, as far as like the infestation of hogs, if you see a hog, shoot it. Like, they're not an endangered species. We want to get rid of them because they're causing a lot of trouble. Hog hunting with AR-15. Hog hunting with an AR-15 is fucking fun. That is definitely fun. But no, there's no, like, you don't need an AR-15, but where a lot of people get scared is what's next. Like, if they're going to regulate the whole thing.
I get that argument.
The whole thing with New Zealand, like the next day after that shooting, which was absolutely god awful terrible. And the whole thing with PewDiePie, that disgusts me. Not PewDiePie. The guy in his manifesto, or whenever he was done, was basically saying he was doing this for PewDiePie. He brought up PewDiePie's name.
Oh God!
Trying to link him and PewDiePie together.
Oh God!
But anyway, the next day, New Zealand's like, we're banning semi-auto rifles. A lot of people are like, yeah, go ahead. And I'm like, so here's the thing on that. Like, if you're like, I don't agree with the ban of semi-automatic rifles because there's nothing wrong with them. You know, it's like, there's no reason why we need to like only have bolt action rifles or revolvers or anything like that. Like, don't regulate that. You know, like, for example, I mean, I have my license to carry. In terms of my situation, if you tell me that the only thing I can carry is a revolver, if I'm in a life or death situation, having a revolver over a semi-automatic handgun are two completely different things. You're leaving me at a disadvantage if I need the support that I need. Now, handguns are not getting into yet, but it's a very, but long story short, no, nobody needs an AR-15. They're cool to have and they're fun to shoot. But I mean, you know, it's one of those that for most people, it's like, if you're going to ban this, what are you going to ban next? Because there was a lot of legislation talking about, hey, this is what we want to ban. And it's like, well, no, like, there's no reason for you to ban that just because someone is using it to go to a school shooting. It's the same. And like the whole thing with, there was a most recent thing about, they finally got the law. Like, there was they were trying to sue the Armalite company after Sandy Hook, and it finally went through of they could be held accountable for the situation. And very like simply, a lot of people were like, okay, so this is the same logic here. Are you going to try to hold Toyota reliable if a Toyota causes a car wreck? You know, are you going to try to hold Kershaw knives reliable if someone uses their knife to kill someone? I mean, it's the same kind of thought process.
Yeah. I mean, I just think this will be the last thing I'll talk about, because we do need to get started. But I mean, the last thing I'll talk about is the fact that I just don't like how lobbying is a thing. Like, I would trust a Republican bitching about guns if he didn't have the NRA in his pocket. Like, I don't understand how that's legal. You know, I don't understand how you can have Walmart pay you to say, hey, we should have more Walmarts. And you're a politician, and so you put through legislation that allows more Walmarts to be, you know, on every corner or something. Not that they aren't already, but you know what I mean, right? Or Starbucks going in and becoming the Starbucks guy becoming president, and then all of a sudden there's even more Starbucks. Like, he bans any other coffee shop.
Right.
How is that allowed? Like, that, it doesn't make sense why the NRA can go to a Republican, give them a bunch of money, and then, hey, pop, or, you know, what's the stock called?
Bump stock.
Bump stock. Now all of a sudden bump stocks are legal because he got paid by the NRA. Like, good for the NRA protecting their, you know, their interest, but at the same time, it's just like, I don't know, it just shouldn't be legal. You know, because I mean, if you think
I agree with that. Bump stocks shouldn't be. Bump stocks are cool for like, same thing. Bump stocks, I'm more like, let's ban those instead of AR-15s, because a bump stock literally does make a rifle an automatic rifle, because it uses basically physics. I mean, the way it works is you put it on the back, you shoot, and it automatically has a spring that will basically make it fully auto. So yeah, I'm cool with banning bump stocks, because we don't need to make it automatic. There's ways to make a gun automatic, and it's a very long process. It's like a 6 to 8 months to a year process to make a gun automatic, to get the licensing for it.
Okay. I like this. See, because at the end of this, I still love you.
Yeah. You know? I think this is the most political we've ever gotten.
Yeah. I mean, definitely for a pre-show.
For a pre-show, for sure. That's a meaty one.
Alrighty, let's go ahead and get started. Ready?
Yep.
All right, recording on 1, 2, 3. 1,
2.
Let's get it. All
Wait,
right, so this is what's going on?
Hello, is it me? Okay. All right, hold on. Let's start that again, because I think it's picking up on my mic, not my.
Okay. Whenever you're ready. Also, you have your timer ready, right?
Yes.
Mark ready? Okay.
All right, hold on. I'm making sure. Okay, yeah, it's picking up my. All right, let me close. All right. Hold on. Let me close Audacity because it's
okay.
it's using my headset mic, not my Yeti.
That was a pretty good pre-show. I liked it. So it also just kind of shows like how we are,
right? As people. Okay, there we go.
People,
we're good.
You know, I'm very centrist because it's like, yeah.
Okay.
All right, ready?
Yep.
All right, recording on 1, 2, 3. 1,
2.
All right, so this part's for the editor. Since my computer's messed up and it bogs down sometimes and it stops recording for a millisecond at a time, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to add in, we're not going to do the resync like we did last time. So what you want to do is probably about every 10 minutes, if you just add in like 0.5 seconds of silence, that's 0.5 seconds of silence, a half a second of silence every like 10 minutes, you should be fine on my recording.
My recording's fine. Just need to add it to Nick's.
Yeah, you need to add it to mine. So that's a message just for our editor, Brian. Okay, so let's jump into it. Hey, God damn it, I thought Link did the shout outs. He didn't do the shout outs. So Kevin wanted to be known as his name and Kevin, correct? And Adam. So Adam.
Did you ask in the Patreon section?
Yes, I asked that already.
That's why I was looking to see where you asked it in the Patreon section.
Oh yeah. Okay. I'm Kevin. And then Danny's wanted to be known as Danny.
And then MavCop is MavCop. MavCop.
All right. Patreon shout outs. I think we're good. Let's add that. Remind me when we get started. We'll add that to, well, I don't know. Maybe he already did it to the other one.
Do you want to do it at the beginning or the end?
I do. Wait, what?
Do you want to do the Patreon shout outs at the beginning or the end?
I don't know. We usually get through the grinding pretty fast, so it's not like it's going to bog down the grinding.
Okay.
All right, go ahead and mark me. Mm-hmm. Oh wait, let me get the fan real fast. Sorry, that's my fault.
Okay, my only worry, especially if we're on a little bit of a time crunch, is I feel like this is going to be really, really meaty. Because I do want to talk about Endgame. I do want to talk about Umbrella Academy and Division.
All right, what'd you say? I'm back.
I said my only worry with this doc is I feel like we're going to go really long on this one, just because I do want to talk about Endgame. I want to talk about Division, and I want to talk about Umbrella Academy.
Yeah, it probably is going to be a pretty meaty episode. All righty. Go ahead and mark and then tell me when to start.
Okay. And mark.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Nerd to the Third, your stop for video games, movies, and nerd culture. Today, we're bringing you the Power of Three with your host, Nick, Nate, and the Wind. What's that? The Wind. So we were actually supposed to have a guest on, but we had to get started without her. So hopefully she'll be on next episode. So real quick before we get started, get some grinding out of the way. Go to our Twitter at TX3 Productions on Twitter, ThreadX3 Productions on Facebook and YouTube. And just add at gmail.com at the end of that, and you'll have ThreadX3Productions at gmail.com, and you can email us. Also, if you like Apex and you're having a lot of fun with that and you can't wait for that frickin' Battle Pass, then you can go to Apex Legends Hubcast. You can go to Apex Legends Cast on Twitter or Apex Legends hubcast@gmail.com. You can check out our podcast, see if you like it. And if you're from there listening to this podcast, hello, how are you? Thanks for checking us out. Like Nate's mom. Patreon. You can also go to our Patreon /ThreadX3 Productions. We got some shout outs for our Patreon producers, X3 producers. We got Adam, aka I'm not gay, I'm Kevin. We have Danny's and Mavcop. Thank you guys so much for doing that. If you guys want to support us, there is a $1, a $3, there's a $1, a $3, and a $6 tier, and you get different rewards for each one. You can go ahead and check that out. That would be awesome. We love your support, and hopefully we give you enough to make it feel worth it. So, for instance, just for $1, you can get the late night edition, and that gives you pre and post show. This particular pre-show was pretty meaty. We don't usually go on for that long, but we had a pretty rigor rating,
either riveting or
I think that's what I meant. Rigorous. I think rigorous.
Yeah,
I was going for rigorous. Sorry, guys. We had a very rigorous discussion, so it was really fun. It was really fun going on without. We're moving on. All right, so let's get on to our headlines of the week. All right, so we got some big ones. We got some juicy ones. Juicy. So let's start off on the video game side of stuff. Borderlands 3. Very possible. Gearbox is teasing the F out of it. We got something that's very shell-shaded, very Borderlands looking, and they're talking about March 28th, which is PAX, which our own boy, Link is going to PAX. So he's going to check out all the real cool stuff. He's going to report back to us. He might do a YouTube video, or we might just have him on the show. We'll see. But he's going to PAX. I am so jealous, aren't you?
Yeah, I've always wanted to go to PAX, right. But for me, because I'm in Texas, PAX South, I never know when it's happening until it's already happened.
Right. Well, I mean, like, I feel like it's more prevalent now that there's kind of like one per season. So it's like, it's kind of easy, but it's just, yeah, I'm super jealous, like legitimately jealous of Link. But I'm also super proud because here we have a new guy, and he is just absolutely killing it in our Discord. He's absolutely killing it in other stuff. We got some sponsors on the way, guys. Super freaking dope. So please stay tuned. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be something you're going to want to share with people because it is a dope sponsor. But I can't say too much about it because we do need to make, dot the I's and cross the T's. So, but something coming really. Speaking of PAX, I guess. Borderlands 3, let's get back to that. So Borderlands 3, I don't know, like what are you hoping that we get from this?
An announcement. I mean, I think that's what everybody's hoping for. It's one of those that if it would have just been like, if they would have just left it at the, hey, we're teasing something, and they didn't put out that image that's very Borderlands-esque. I mean, it's one of those that if they pull a Blizzard and
do a mobile,
no, maybe not mobile, but don't like say anything about Borderlands 3, they're going to lose a lot of goodwill. So it's almost confirmed basically that Borderlands 3 we will see.
Right.
Which the thing about that is, what will it be? Like, I remember they had a great conversation about this on Kind of Funny Games Daily, where they were like, in a world we live in where we have live service games. Because if you think about it, honestly, Borderlands 2 is way ahead of its time.
Yes.
In terms of its gameplay. So is Borderlands going to take a Destiny route? Are they going to go more live service, or are they going to stick to their guns and just retool the game? It's been years since we've had a proper Borderlands game, which I don't want to say that because the pre-sequel a lot of people really enjoyed. But like a proper new entry in Borderlands, I mean, it's been a good while.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited. I would like to see. So I want more than just an announcement, like a confirmation of his existence, because Gearbox in general has actually been pretty quiet for a few years now. Other than, they put out like, hey, we want people to help us create Borderlands 3. Other than that, like, it's been pretty quiet. So like, I want a lot. I want a trailer, obviously, but I also want gameplay. I want them to point out what's going to be different about, like, I want in depth, because I feel like this should be ready to go pretty much. And I mean, that might be expecting too much of them, but like, yeah, Gearbox has been pretty damn silent for a while now. So I would really like to see what do they have, and so let's speculate really just a little bit, because we don't want to go too long, but let's speculate just for a little bit. Like, what, other than maybe a good version of, like, well, I don't know, like Division is the mark right now for live services and getting a good amount of content for a looter shooter. So that's the level of like live services that you need to bring to the table. So like, I think I would like to see something like that brought to Borderlands 3. What do you think?
All right, I'm marking it. Fill time in the pre-show. I really have to run to the bathroom. I marked it already, so you're good. Just tell them how much you love it on the pre-show or on the live.
I'm picking my nose. I got a really good booger. Let me just wipe that there. There we go. I might need to get it again. Oh, yeah, there's still some up there. Yeah. So you need my pinky because it's the smallest one. So it gets really good in there. If I wasn't at my office, or if I wasn't at my desk, had some toilet paper and just blow it out. I don't have anything to like snot rocket it into, so kind of just get in there with my finger, wipe it on this over here. Just, yeah, there we go. I can still feel it. Right tunnel. It's one of those that like if I breathe in, it moves, and if I breathe out, it moves the other way. I don't like that. I don't like it at all. No, stop it. It's also one of those that if it tickles it the right way, it's going to make me sneeze, or it's going to make me feel like I need to sneeze. And if I have to sneeze for too long, I just hate that feeling. So now you got my habits for picking my nose. I do it a lot. Probably way too much, honestly. Like, I scare myself how much I actually do it. I'm like, now my daughter's doing it. That's the worst part. I got a 3-year-old and she's picking her nose, and I'm like, but like Ashley is way more stricter about it because she sees her doing it. She's almost immediately like, stop doing that or whatever. And it's like, can we really tell her to do that? Because we have a 31-year-old picking his nose. Can we tell the 3-year-old that that's bad to do? I don't know. I don't think so, because I just like having a clean nose. Is that wrong? You know, I try not to do it in public. Obviously, I'm not going to just be like in public, like, oh, pow, in my nose. You know, like I can't do that in public, obviously. I do it on the road. I definitely do it on the road because I'll be like digging. I got this really good one back up in there. And I'm like, I hope nobody drives by while I'm doing this. Yeah. Did you like that?
Yeah, I heard every single bit of that.
That's some
okay.
Good material for you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. All right,
I'm gonna mark, and then I'm just gonna go into it.
Yeah, just jump right into it.
So I really don't know what I want Borderlands 3 to be. I see what you're saying as far as I get what you're saying. If this game is going to be any kind of live service game, I think it should be like a Division. I don't think it should be live service in the sense of Destiny, and especially Anthem. Now, maybe Destiny in the sense of their strikes and their live events. Like I could see them instituting something like that.
That's what they kind of took it from. They took the Borderlands 2 like DNA and just added stuff that, oh, now you can do it with multiple people, which obviously you could do it with up to 4, but it was, you know, now it's a couple of squads of 4.
Giggity.
Not really.
You could do it with multiple people. Yeah, that's a giggity right there.
I know.
No, yeah, definitely. I think what's going to be the most interesting for me is if they're going to kind of stay to their roots and maybe do a more co-op kind of experience like they did in Borderlands 2, or if they're going to transition to a games as service model. That's going to be the most interesting thing. I think I'm more interested to see what they're going to do other than what Halo Infinite's going to do.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to see something different. And I feel like they created the looter shooter because there were plenty of RPGs out there, but they were the first one that added RPG to the shooter aspect in the best way. And so I want to see what's the next evolution. They thought it was going to be Battleborn. I'm still a proponent to Battleborn. Battleborn was one of my favorite of that particular year. And like I saw what they were trying to do and I really appreciated it, but there were very few people who like Battleborn. So I would like to see what's the next evolution. What's the next evolution of, and if there's going to be anybody, hopefully, I mean, fingers crossed, if there's going to be anybody to like revolutionize how, you know, like Division 2 is the perfect example. They are the mark right now for live services. They learned from their last one and they've made it better. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. And so they are the mark. If anybody's going to mark above Division, I would think it would be the creators of the looter shooter, which was Borderlands. And so I want to see what could they do. Not only that, but I'd like it to just be more open, because like sometimes the funnest parts were like driving around and stuff, you know. So I'd like to see like, could they make it more open rather than here's a hub. They're all open-esque, but I'd like to see like an actual like full-blown open world. Now that we have the power of the PlayStation 3, PlayStation 3, god damn it. Now that we have the power of the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One and everything, now that we have that power, I'd like to see what would it look like as one whole map rather than here's a map, then you go to the next map, then you go to the next map. Each map was obviously huge and it was, you know, able to drive around, but I'd like to see it as one, you know, consistent world. Like here's a giant continent, and then maybe kind of like in the sense of Destiny, although like Destiny was very small in comparison to each of the Borderlands maps, at least in my opinion. But like I would like to see what could they do different. I want to see what would their version of it be, and hopefully it would be better than Division 2. So yeah, that's what I'm hoping.
Speaking of bringing it back.
Oh, I thought, do you want me to go into it?
Oh, no. Okay, I'll do that again.
Do it. So speaking of bringing it back, Back 4 Blood. Now, this is Turtle Rock, the makers of Left 4 Dead. They're going to be getting basically what they say is the spiritual successor for Left 4 Dead. I could not be more psyched.
For the record, I have a boner right now.
Yes.
This is
it's so because he looks at me.
How you doing?
How you doing, eh?
So when I saw the headlines for this, you know, all of them were like Left 4 Dead's back, kind of, and there's stuff like that. But either way, if it's a Left 4 Dead 3 or if it's a spiritual successor, please. I mean, we talked about early in the year, if not last year, the whole thing with what was the game that you played that was supposed to be Left 4 Dead-esque?
Oh, you mean Vermintide?
No, the Alien one.
Oh, Alien was Earthfall.
So I remember when it came out, you were excited. I was excited too, kind of vicariously, because I wasn't going to pick it up. But I was like, yes, we haven't had a game like this in a while. But when we have the people who made Left 4 Dead coming back and they're making a game that's going to be kind of like Left 4 Dead or even similar in the slightest, give it to me now, please. We need a game like this. And going back to what we were talking about with Borderlands 3, I hope they don't do anything crazy with this. I want them to just make if it's a spiritual, I want them to make if it's not Left 4 Dead, make it with the same DNA. I don't want any live service thing. Maybe some events, but I don't want an open world. I don't want anything like that.
Challenges would be good because Vermintide 2 Vermintide and Vermintide 2, they do challenges and they do have like RPG elements in the sense that whatever like guns you bring into battle with you, those can have basically perks. So they're all balanced in the sense that like an assault rifle or a gun would do the same damage as a gun. It's just that now, since you have a higher level gun, now it pierces through multiple targets or it slows them down and little things like that. But as far as like the damage they do, that it's technically the same. It's just how many buffs they have to them.
But I want, like I said, I want the exact same thing to be 100% honest. I love Left 4 Dead's format. You're playing for either like just alone, or you're playing with 4 players. You're just going through hordes of zombies, and you're following a like kind of story mission. Like each map has its own kind of start and end to it.
Mm-hmm.
A very linear experience. I want that. I don't want an open world. I don't want anything crazy. If you put in mechanics like challenges or maybe like a live event, like maybe while you're running through this map, every now and then there will be like a big, like, zombie or big kind of like a charger or something like that comes up in an event you get more XP for. I'm totally cool with that. But just this is the first time in a while I've said for a game developer, give me what you have done before. I don't want you to innovate too much. Mm-hmm. I want what we had, because we said this when we talked about Earthfall, no one has been able to follow the formula as well as Left 4 Dead. Payday is fun. Payday's okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But no one has been able to recreate the magic that's Left 4 Dead or Left 4 Dead 2.
Yeah, everybody's been able to make it feel like it, but nobody's ever been able to copy it in the perfect example. And I kind of said this before when I was talking about Vermintide, but the perfect example is Vermintide will be the closest you ever get, but it's still not Left 4 Dead, because what made Left 4 Dead so unique is that each level was basically a movie. It had 3 different areas, which were 3 different acts of the movie. And that was cool. But what Vermintide does is it breaks each part, the 3 acts, it breaks them into separate missions. And so having to get out of the mission just to go back into the missions themselves are big and they're expansive for the most part, especially in Vermintide 2. They definitely made it a lot more expansive, but it's still not the same as going from point A to point B. You got that safe house, you load into the next one, you load up on your ammo, then you go into the next. That 3-act structure is really cool, because that 3-act structure can usually take you about 1 to 2 hours, depending on like how expansive you want, how exploratory you want to be. So like it's basically the length of a movie in some cases. Now, obviously, if you speed run it, you could probably do 30 to 45 minutes or whatever, but that's just if you're not caring about any of the extra stuff. Me typically, and tell me your experience, but me typically, it was usually an hour to an hour and a half to finish the whole thing.
Yeah, it would take longer for me if I was going to try to like look at more of the world or try to experience a story a little bit more. But if I just wanted to run through like I've done, like you beat it once and then it. If I just play through it, it might take me like 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it won't take me long.
That's my point, is that it felt like a movie, or at the very
right.
episode of, there was a beginning, there was a middle, and there's an end. And so that's the one thing nobody has ever done. Even Earthfall was the exact same way, where instead of having the beginning, middle, and end, where you get to a safe house, and then, instead of doing that, they just did missions. And so each mission did kind of flow into the next, just like Left 4 Dead did as well. But it just, in Left 4 Dead, they felt like sequels of a movie versus here's a mini-sode, here's another mini-sode. And that's kind of how everybody has done it since they've been trying to copy the whole procedure or whatever. But Left 4 Dead, now here's one thing that I want to speculate a little bit. It's called Back 4 Blood, which I'm glad they kept the 4, the actual numeral 4. But Back 4 Blood, now I'm just going off the wall right now, but what if the reason they're calling it Back 4 Blood rather than Left 4 Dead, because dead, zombies, blood, vampires?
That would expand on the lore.
See, now the thing is that with vampires, you can still have like dreads, and the dreads are very zombie-esque. So you could still have zombies. It's just that the special type of zombies that we would have gotten in Left 4 Dead are now like vampires type zombies.
So yeah, you could have things like, instead of having a oh my god, what was the zombie called that wore the hoodie and would strike on you?
Hunter.
Instead of having a hunter, you could have a vampire that has a phase shift ability. So like you see him and then you go to shoot at him and he like shifts away over here, and it makes it a lot harder. So that would be cool.
Yeah.
I can take that title either as that or take it as a, like, we're back for blood. We're Left 4 Dead. We're back. So I think you can take it one or two ways.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's just what I'm going off of because, like I said, dead, zombies, blood, vampires. That's kind of what I'm going off of. And I'd be okay with that. Now, I'm going to do a deep cut for anybody who played it. But if we got like a Dark Watch, but Left 4 Dead style, that would be freaking awesome.
Oh, was Dark Watch in 1? Was Dark Watch in 1?
Dark Watch was a PlayStation 2 first-person shooter made by Capcom, and it was Western with skeletons and vampires. Every gun basically had like a giant cross on it, and it also had a melee ability where it had a blade on all the weapons. So when you meleeed, you'd hit them with the blade. But it was kind of, in a sense, it was kind of Left 4 Dead-esque in the sense that like it had different types of, you know, quote unquote zombies. But in this, it was like the zombies, just the regular zombies were like skeletons, and they'd come at you with like sickles and stuff. And then they have different types. And so they would have different like vampires. And so they'd have different types of enemies. But instead of it being in the, you know, zombie universe, I guess it was in the vampire universe. So you also had, I mean, I think at one point you do all start getting like werewolf-esque, you know, things, and you
So kind of like
have,
a Van Helsing kind of character.
yeah.
Or
And
world.
so like, you also had like these succubuses. So you had these like girls, and they'd be floating around and like, yeah, like go check it out if you guys really want to. Go check out Dark Watch. Go find some like gameplay or whatever. And like if we could have something like that, but in the Left 4 Dead like formula DNA, oh my god. So that's your deep cut of the day. Moving on up, we also got an in-game trailer, a new trailer. I'm super hyped for it, and Nate's not so much. So why don't you start it off?
So when the trailer came out, I took to Twitter and I said, unpopular opinion, that trailer really didn't do anything for me. And what I meant by that was, whenever the teaser trailer came out for Endgame, there was a lot of people that had come out and was like, hey, you know what would be awesome and what would be really on brand of them to do with the way that they've been doing their marketing is, what if they just didn't show another trailer until Endgame came out?
Yeah.
And that idea got seeped into my mind. I'm like, I would really like that, because if they just left it as is, as the teaser trailer, and even the second teaser trailer was kind of similar to the first one, I would have been totally happy with that, because that I already have my hype and expectations for Endgame. I already have that. Everybody pretty much does. You don't need to overmarket this movie in the absolute slightest. So if they would have just left it at that, I think that would have been really awesome, because that teaser trailer was phenomenal. That was a quality trailer. It set the tone of the world. It set the tone of the movie completely, and it didn't show too much. So this trailer comes out, and my first takeaway of it is they're following the Star Wars format in terms of the trailers that they've done for the past few movies, especially Force Awakens in particular, where they're not showing us really anything. And the entire, like maybe 50-60% of the trailer is recut grayscaled footage of movies prior, which I thought was cool. Like, you know, okay, let's bring it back to its roots, to the actual in game now. But, you know, then it did show some stuff from the movie, and none of it really got me super, super excited. Now, going back and rewatching it, I do have some takeaways from the trailer that I actually really enjoyed.
Yeah.
So the first one, in the trailer, you see Hawkeye shooting with his daughter.
Yeah.
Then you see the next cut is him as Ronin, which they haven't, I don't think they've confirmed that's Ronin, but I mean, it's pretty much he's Ronin.
Yeah, right.
That, and I paused it because I was showing my wife, and I was like, this is what I like about this trailer. The way they edit that and the way they cut that shows and almost confirms that something happened to his family to cause him to go down this path.
Yep.
You see him shooting with his daughter. They're very happy. The next thing you see him grimacing and just killing people, you know, which the theory is that the snap, which I don't remember what they call it in the world. It's the
snapping.
I don't call it the snapping. but it basically confirms that his family was taken away from him in the snap.
Yep.
The other thing that I took away from it was, if you've seen, obviously spoilers for the other movies, but if you saw Ant-Man and the Wasp at the in credit scene of Ant-Man and the Wasp, he goes into the quantum realm to gather some material so they can study. Well, Scott gets stuck in the quantum realm because superimposed back to where outside the quantum realm, when on this roof, the snap takes away Hank Pym, the Wasp, and the original Wasp. I don't remember their names. Evangeline Lilly, whatever her name is. Michelle Pfeiffer, thank you. So he's stuck in the quantum realm. Well, in the trailer, you see there's a shot of him looking at this lamppost that's got these missing posters all over it, and Scott just looks utterly confused. It makes you realize, oh, he doesn't know what's going on at all. He was stuck in the quantum realm when all this was happening. And so there's little story things like that in the trailer that I really did appreciate, because it's setting stuff up for the movie and setting up ideas that I really enjoy. Yeah. Now, I'm a little unhappy with the not final shot, but the shot before they showed the title sequence, because, it shows them teaming up, and it was cool to see them all wearing the same uniform suits. But the thing I didn't like is you see Tony and you see Nebula in that walk up whenever they're walking through the hall. And it's like, okay, I understand that, Tony needs to be there, but it would have been totally cool to see, hey, did he actually make it or not? Like, that would have been cool to discover on my own if he was going to be there at the end. Like I said, the other side of it was the theory being the reason why Doctor Strange gave up the time stone is because Tony is the key to saving us all. That's the biggest theory coming from Infinity War. So I understand why they showed it in the trailer. And it's one of those, if you blink, you missed it kind of thing. So most people have freeze framed on it and saw it. So that's where I'm at on the trailer. I really wish they would have just shown the first one and not seen anything else, because I don't think they needed to show another trailer. And like I said, like 20%, 25% of the trailer was stuff from the movie, kind of. And then the others were just flashback stuff. So, I mean, they did do a good job of not showing you anything at all. But the stuff that they did show you, in particular with the team up sequence, I was kind of like, all right, I could have done without seeing that. Yeah.
I mean, first off, I honestly did not see Tony Stark. So when you told me, I was like, oh, really? He's there? Like, I didn't even see him. So yeah. I'm pretty psyched because I like the tone of it. I love the matching outfits at the very end. That part just was like, hell yeah. So I mean, like, I liked it more. However, I definitely can see where you're coming from, as far as like, it would have been nice to just like go into it fresh, The one thing I am worried about, though, just from the trailers, I really hope that what we're getting from the trailers is Act 1, because the one thing about Infinity War that made it so good is that it was pretty nonstop. We started off on the, everybody's dead on the ship, and then we go right into them invading New York, and then we go right into, and it was very like boom, 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 just one thing after another. Now that Thanos has got his way, how much are we really getting? Because obviously, just from the trailers, all we're getting is, hey, we're getting the band back together, And so I really hope that's not all the movie. And then the third act is where the action came in. Because just by comparison, Infinity War, let's call that part 1, obviously. Infinity War was balls to the wall action. Yes, we had little moments like Scarlet Witch and Vision, we had little moments like that, but for the most part, it was wall to wall action. And so what I've seen from the trailer makes me a little worried, in the sense that, are we not going to get like any action to the very end of the movie? So that's why I hope what the trailer is showing us is Act 1. Act 1 is them getting back together. Act 2 maybe is they try to fight and maybe they don't do so well. And then Act 3 is boom, we all got the matching outfits, and now it's so. I mean, that's the only thing I'm kind of worried about. Other than that, yeah, I'm hyped to the brim of my cup. But yeah, I'm a little worried that how much action is going to be in this, because yeah, just by comparison, it needs to have similar amount of action.
So what I'll finish on is I'm the opposite. I'm the opposite with you. I want a good portion of this movie to be the desolation. I want a good portion of this movie to be the heroes and the world recuperating or trying to after this giant event. You can't just have this giant event happen and then talk about it for maybe 30 minutes and then go into action. I honestly, in some ways, kind of hope half of this movie is them just being like, what do? We are lost. We are hopeless. And then I'm going to be totally okay if the last half or the third act of the movie is where all the action comes in.
Yeah.
But that's the thing too. I don't want to speculate too much because we don't like this movie. There's nothing like it that has been around. So we don't know how they're going to incorporate it. Are they going to do a lot? Is the first half going to be everyone trying to figure out where everyone's at, trying to figure out what we're going to do? But my main thing is I want a large portion of this movie to be, hey, we have to deal. I want it to be the what's the word I'm looking for? You have cause and effect. I want them to show the effect. Like I want them to have a long period of time where it's like, oh my God, this happened. Like, what's the world gonna do?
So the last thing I'll say is that would be good as far as a movie goes, but as far as the sequel goes, that's where it becomes iffy. A perfect example would be Fellowship of the Ring, Two Towers, and Return of the King. This essentially is the Return of the King. And so if we have the same amount going on as in like the Fellowship of the Ring, like another thing I'll say is that this is an Avengers movies. So far, all the Avengers movies have been paced perfectly, in my opinion. You know, the very first one, even though we were just getting the band together in that one, it was very action packed, you know, not wall to wall, mind you. And then we had two, and that was very, you know, very action-packed. It was very action packed. And I'm talking about the pacing. The pacing is the most important part, because if you look at it, first one was good. Second one, the pacing was even better. And then the third one, which was Infinity War, was wall-to-wall action. So as far as if we're looking at it from, you know, an outline, this is supposed to be the climax, because this is the end. Now there is going to be a resolution. There's going to be, you know, exposition, obviously, or not exposition. What's it called at the end?
Conclusion?
No, what's after the conclusion?
Epilogue is.
Thank you. There's obviously going to be an epilogue, because after they beat him, there needs to be this epilogue, and hopefully it'll be kind of like an Uncharted epilogue where you get to see, you know, how everybody's coping with afterwards. So hopefully we get that resolution, because this is called End Game. This is the very end of what the Avengers have been, you know, going towards. The entire Avengers has been going towards this. So we had the snap, and so we need some type of epilogue to show us that, yes, everything's returning back to normal and yada, yada, yada. But I mean, that's what I'm trying to get at, is the fact that this is the fourth movie. Not only is it the fourth movie, it's technically the 20th, but let's not go there.
Okay.
This is number 4. This is the Return of the King. This is the Return of the Jedi. This is the last one, technically, of the Avengers. So it needs to be all the way. This needs to be all the way at the top, not this whiny, you know, bitch fest.
Well, you can also look at it in the sense of this is part 2. Like whenever they were first announcing the movie, it was Avengers Part 1 and Part 2.
Oh,
so although it is a sequel, it is, you know, part 2 to the story. Now, I did lie. I am going to speculate a little bit, because the more you were talking, the more I was thinking about it. Yeah. I think what it'll be is the first act of the movie is going to be showing the effect of what happened, showing the, you know, Tony lost in space, showing everyone on Earth trying to figure out what's going on. Like, hey, how are we going to deal with this? How are we going to fix this? I think Act 2 is whenever Scott Lang's going to come into play, and he brings up the quantic realm, and them start to formulate a plan and do the planning process of, is this going to work? And then I think Act 3 is going to be the final battle.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I just hope it's good pacing wise, because like even when they were getting the band together in the first one, there was still a lot of action. There was still a lot of really good set pieces throughout. So I mean, that's and I'll say this about any movie, whether it's an action movie, comedy, drama, pacing is 100%. Even if it's a drama and there's not technically like a lot of like action, so to speak, but the drama, interesting stuff needs to happen in a good pace to keep you interested. And considering that this is the fourth of the movie, that's what's the most important to me. If it is going to be drama, it needs to be interesting drama. It needs to be giving me enough to keep me going. So we need to keep it. Speaking of keeping going, we need to get going. So the next headline of the week, and this is probably the best one, I would say, but James Gunn is back.
This is such an interesting tale. This is such an interesting turn of events. And I told you this on stream. If you didn't check it out, you can check us out on twitch.tv/threatx3. You can Twitch us. We have streams every now and then, but we talked about this on stream. I think there's a big shakeup going on at Disney right now. I think that they are holding back because they've been very vocal about their planning and stuff like that. But I think us going into phase 4, I think they're holding back, and I think they're doing a lot of reconstruction at Disney. Something had to happen for him to be able to come back into place. I think that there's something going on. But what's most interesting about this is that there was no buildup to this. There was no leak of, hey, Disney's talking with James Gunn again. It just came out and happened. And so I don't know if they've just come to terms with something, or what I think probably it is because Guardians 3 was put on hold until they found a director, and obviously they didn't find one. So I think Kevin Feige or someone at Marvel came to Disney and was like, hey, look, we have this story that it really needs to be told. And what I think happened is they probably Disney was really impressed by the story they were trying to tell and see the plan that they're trying to do going forward. And they're like, okay, we need James Gunn back. I do want to read James's response just because I think it was very well articulated. And I think it was perfect. So he took to all social media platforms with a note that says, I am tremendously grateful to every person out there who has supported me over the past few months. I am always learning and will continue to work at being the best human being I can be. I deeply appreciate Disney's decision, and I am excited to continue making films that investigate the ties of love that bind us all. I have been and continue to be incredibly humbled by your love and support. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. Love to you all. The other side to this is the first time that one director is directing a Marvel movie and a DC movie in similar proximity to each other.
Yep. All right. So what I like that response. It was very, poised and professional or whatever. I would love to have, when Keel and Peele, they had Obama translator, the angry translator. That's what I would like to hear.
Right.
Like Dave Bautista needs to be the angry translator.
That would be pretty perfect.
Because that was just, it was so nice. And it was like, oh, we just love each other. And like, oh my God. But I want to hear what he really thinks because like that is the professional side of him, and God bless him. And that's probably how he really feels. But there has to be a part of you that is just pissed off about the situation in general. I want to hear, maybe I want to hear his brother's side of it. Cause his brother's really into it. He was one of the characters in the series. I guess I do really want to see, what did Dave Bautista say about it? What would he really say about it? Because it was just, the whole thing was, we talked about it. This would have been obviously months ago, but we talked about it on there to third. And I just thought it was just, out of all the things out there that could be considered a witch hunt, this was one of them.
Very much so.
Because this was something that came out years ago. This is something that he already apologized about. This is something that everybody already forgave him about. But for some reason, it had to be brought up again, And it's funny to see James Gunn's reaction compared to Kevin Hart's reaction, because Kevin Hart was very much in the mind of, oh my God, why is this a thing? Calm the hell down. I have a friend who's gay.
That whole conversation.
It's funny because in a similar sense of the jokes that he made back in the past were very much controversial in today's lens. And it was very interesting to see Kevin Hart's like take on that. And it's like that's almost the angry rant that I would like to hear James Gunn. But of course he can't, because then that would undo all the work that he's done to get to this point. And so I totally understand. But just as like a sketch or something, I would like to see the angry translation of that tweet, because it would just be so awesome. So like Peele, or no, not because Jordan Peele. What
Keegan-Michael Keys.
Keegan.
So
I would like to see him reprise his role and do the angry translation, because that would just yeah. But I mean, that's great. Let's not get away from, let's get away from the political like bullshit side of it, and let's just be like, that's great. Thank God. I mean, controversial topic here, but it's like, thank God Disney got their head out of their ass, because I mean, that's really what happened. They're like, oh no, money and, political stuff. It's like, thank God they just got their head out of their ass, because I mean, that was just the most frustrating part about it, is that this was already a thing. Why is it suddenly a thing now? Like, is that what I'm going to have to worry about? Oh, I put out a tweet, I apologized about it, and then 6 years later, they bring up that same tweet again, and I'll be like, oh, I'm sorry again. So let's move on. Let's just like James Gunn, let's just go ahead and move on, and let's just focus on being nice to each other. Let's focus on being good to each other. Let's continue to evolve. Let's continue to talk it out. Because I feel like if there would have been an actual conversation, that's what would have changed, a changed. That's the one thing I don't like about my voice right now. I'm on the mend. I'm much better, but I still have those like puberty moments where I'm like, hey guys, how's it going? Oh, geez, man. I don't know.
Oh, geez, Rick. I don't know what is good coming back, man.
All right. So, I mean, that's what we have for the headlines. We're super psyched for Borderlands 3. I can't wait to see literally anything for Back 4 Blood in game. Let's go for it. And James Gunn, thank God he's back. All right. So let's go right into the weekly grind. All right. So weekly grind. We get to talk about what have we been up to? What have we been doing? So both of us, if you didn't see the stream, you can Twitch us apparently. You can Twitch us on ThreadX3 Productions. But yeah, we played it. We're loving it. I mean, let's get into the nitty gritty. We kind of already talked about it enough when we were talking about our beta impressions. So if you want to, you can go back and go that. What I thought would be nice, so that we're not talking about the exact same thing, is let's talk about like some of the little things that they've been able to change from 1 to 2. Like for instance, if you played 1 and you were just like, I don't really care, it didn't really hit me the right way or something like that. Let us tell you like what's different about it, in the sense that what did they change about it? What did they make better? Because like that's like, I feel like there are even some people who maybe they didn't try the first one because of what they heard about it. So now let us try to tell you like what we think is different about it and what makes it better. So you want to start us off?
Yeah, so my opinion is actually very interesting, because before Division 2 came out, I actually went back and was playing more of Division 1.
Right.
And I feel like that gives me an interesting lens on the situation, just because I have a direct comparison going back and forth. So the first thing about Division 2 that I am absolutely loving is I feel like Division 2 is giving me much more of a reason to play the game. I feel like the incentivization model in this game is way better than the first. I got all the way over the course of 2 or 3 years, because I would pick it up and put it back down. On Division 1, I got up to about 20, I believe.
Oh, geez.
I got up decently, I think. I'm pretty sure I was around 20. But anyway, even up at that point, I didn't feel incentivized to play the game. I didn't feel like there was anything that was, getting the guns was cool, but I felt like it was way more of a grind to go through and let me get this gun so I can just play this mission. Division 2 doesn't seem like that at all.
So far, let's put that
so far
there.
Yeah. Well, one thing that's different right off the bat is now, when instead of doing like in Division 1 where you had a main mission for this part of the base, a main mission for that part of the base, it progressed that story, and it upgraded that part of the base. This time it's all about you. So in the first part, you have your main missions that are going to get you, I think they're called Shed. I think that's the way they pronounce it in the game. Basically the Division currency. You have main missions that are going to give you those drops, like maybe 5 or 6 per mission. And then you have some that are going to give you, I don't remember the actual name of them, but it's a yellow triangle. That's basically for skills. Like you'll get skill points basically for beating that main mission, which will allow you to get the different equipment. So that right off the bat is a visual incentivization of, oh, I can do this main mission to get some more perks, or I can do this main mission to get more skills.
Yep.
And so that right off the bat, it gives me incentivized to play these missions more than, hey, let me just progress the story.
Right.
Also, I feel like the drops are a lot better. I feel like even in the very beginning, like the difference in the guns that I'm getting is very varied. And one thing I really appreciate is
very varied.
Very varied. One thing I visually really enjoy is the new menu setup. I didn't like the silhouette kind of plain looking menu when you're going to your inventory. They've done it completely differently now. You know, you have, is that right? It was silhouettes in Division 1 and then actual images of the guns in Division 2.
I can't remember. It's been a while. Okay. Sorry.
I'm pretty sure that I remember the inventory looks a lot different.
Yes, it does. I'll admit that it looks good as far as,
and it looks very.
I can't talk about specifics.
Yeah, but also something about this game is just way more fun to play. Maybe it's the fact that it's not nearly as isolated like Division 1 was as far as the world. And the one thing I'm really enjoying is the character diversity. It's not just, you had diversity with the Rikers, with the cleaners, with I didn't ever get to the militant guys because I never got that far in the game as far as story goes. But right off the bat, you have the hyenas, which are the first enemies that you're going to encounter. And even though there's only a few character models, a few different versions of the people you're fighting, they seem very varied. I did it again. They seem really varied as far as what you're encountering. And it's a good mix of, you've got some soldier types, some grenade types, rush types, and the rush types they've advanced as well. They seem a lot more aggressive, but they also have that thing where they'll do that health boost and run up to you, and it seems like the enemy scaling is good as well.
Yes. That's one big thing that I feel like is really good, because we actually tried to play together Division 1, but I had 2 characters. One was too high above you, so it made you pretty much do no damage to him. And the other one was way below you. So it was weird. So what I really like is the scaling. So even if you bought the game today, you went out and then you joined one of us, it would scale you to be a higher level so that you can actually do damage. Now, I did notice that, for instance, I would go down a lot faster. So the damage intake, I feel like needs a little adjustment, but the damage output from your guns, I feel like, now obviously I am doing slightly less damage in comparison to Nate. However, it's not so much where I feel like I'm doing nothing, because that was the biggest frustration for Nate, for instance, is that I would be one-shotting everybody, whereas he would be 2 clips to get a quarter of their health.
Right. Well, in Division 2, it also didn't help when I would be shooting targets and I would look over and you would go, aha, just start running up, and then you go down. I'm like, all right, cool, come back.
I'm an aggressive player.
But it in terms of scaling, it visually does it as well. We were confused for a minute because at the time I was ranked 6. You were ranked 3, I believe. I think you were 3. And when I looked at when it shows your group, it showed you were 5. I was like, well, what the hell is that? It like what he's talking about with scaling. I was 6, so you were just a level below me. And then when I got to rank 7, you were 6. Me. So it definitely has a great adjustment. And what you're saying is 100% true. I remember that time we played Division 1 and I was putting 4 magazines into this guy and doing maybe half damage. I maybe got his health down to 3/4 or a half. And then you got 2 or 3 shots and he was down. So it's very, very improved. As far as
that's just really good for newcomers, because unless you start the game at the same time as one of your friends, jumping into a game like this can be very daunting. It can be very scary. So having this scaling really makes it good for newcomers, because what it does is whoever's the highest level, it scales the enemies to that highest level. So like I said, Nate was a little bit ahead of me because he had the day off and I didn't. I work like a normal person.
I don't want to hear it.
But it scaled me so that I was just a level below him, and this made it so much good because now he can join me instead of making me grind and grind and grind, and then I'm finally able to join him because I'm at the same level as him. Instead of doing it, that scaling is really good for newcomers, and I feel like that is going to be the most user friendly version, because now I can play with a newcomer, or even if I wanted to start a second character, so I have like a secondary character, I don't level that one up as much. If you want to buy the game because maybe you like what we're saying or whatever, then I can join you, PlayStation 4, sorry, for the Xbox users. But if you want to buy the game now and join us, it's really good for newcomers. I love that.
Going back to enemy variancy.
Sorry I interrupted.
No. I was doing I was doing some fact checking on me. We start out with the hyenas, and they're very much like kind of similar to the Rikers in the sense of they're not very militant. They're very like sporadic. And it even shows in the animations. Like if you have a soldier character type that's running up to you, a lot of times he's shooting that rifle like sideways, like it's not very precise, gangsta style. But you go like, let's say, I think at the time when I first encountered them, I was 6 with hyenas, and then I got to 7 and did another mission that involved the True Sons, which is the next faction. That was an immediate difference in the way they play. You had new character types, like soldiers that were rushers kind of, but they were way more heavily armored, and they were a little bit more tactical in their approach. But even that, my first encounter with them, it was completely different with the hyenas. They were much more stayed in cover. They didn't run out nearly as much. So I had to use a different process. Now, there's one thing in particular that I really like about the open world. The main missions themselves seem to be very structured. It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of variance in the main missions. The open world, however, I think you can see it changing and evolving. What I mean by that is outside the White House, you've got activities you can do, which I really enjoy, especially they show up as question marks. You don't know what they are.
Yeah.
So there's one in particular right outside of the White House that's a public execution activity, so you basically have to stop these bad guys from executing these people. But it's like a little mission thing. I played it two times, and it was with hyenas. I got out of a game. I came back in from doing a main mission. I went back to that one right outside the White House, and it was the True Sons this time. It wasn't the hyenas. So it's not like you're going to be replaying it over and over again with the same enemies. There's a bit of variance there, which I think is really, really neat.
Would you say it was very varied?
Very varied. I'm saying variance is a lot in this episode.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, is that it is varied now. Instead of just being the same thing, and you're going through it, and it's like, I've gone down this block 8 times, and it's been the exact same experience. Now, granted, it is still going to be very similar, but I do feel like they're varying it. So you using the word a lot isn't necessarily your fault. It's just that's how the game is. It's not the same thing over and over again. They do kind of mix it up, and they mix it up in interesting ways to keep it interesting. Now I said interesting a lot, but like a lot of like little things. Like one thing I absolutely love is you have this drone, or even like the sentry. The sentry turret was in the first one, and in that one it would just randomly shoot at whoever. Now you can actually pick your targets, and so like little things like that I really enjoy, because now it just adds to the strategy of it. It's like, okay, my drone, I want you to attack this guy because I'm going to focus on this guy, and Nate's going to focus on this guy. And so being able to be way more strategic about it just adds to the complexity of it, because it's like Destiny, it's like, hey, let's just go in super and shoot, and it can be like, you could still be strategic obviously, but that's one thing I love about the Division over Destiny is the fact of how tactical it is. This is a Tom Clancy game, so strategy has a lot to do it, and adding something as little as choosing a target, something as little as that just adds like so much depth to your combat now, because then it's just awesome. Let's just put it that way. Now, there are some changes that early in game I don't know if I like. Kind of jumping into that, they've changed a lot of things as far as some items. So now
you have these perks that you can use, and it's things like upgrade your storage capacity. So it basically takes away from different backpacks, give you different storage options. It's more in the sense of, hey, upgrade this perk, you can have more storage. Upgrade this perk, and you get more grenades, more armor pieces, more things like that. They've definitely included that with attachments as well. So now instead of picking up attachments, you're using a perk to get better optics, or using a perk to get better foregrips or extend magazines, which at first I don't know if I really like, but thinking about it more, it takes the option away of, it basically takes the looting down in a sense of not overwhelming you with all this different stuff. Now the focus on the loot is going to be guns, and it's going to be equipment like armor and things like that, instead of getting these multivaried attachments. Like in Division 1, I can't tell you how many different silencers with different stats or different foregrips, different lasers that I have, and it kind of became over encumbered after a while. So it takes that away, but it's something very, very different. And they've also changed equipment too in terms of your tactical abilities, which this is the one I don't like, especially early on. The first one, which you should get, because I think it's one of the ones that you should get, especially early on, is the pulse ability to be able to spot people. Yeah. Speaking about Apex, this is very similar to Bloodhunder's Eye of the Allfather, where if you're not close, you're not going to ping any enemies, even if you can visually see them. Now, the next step in that is the remote pulse, which makes it better because you can have a more long range. It's like you're throwing a grenade. But that took me by surprise, not in a great way, but I think playing more, it will get better. But those are a couple things in particular that I don't really care for. But it's one of those that I'm not going to fault them for it changing or trying new things.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with the attachments. The fact that we don't have attachments at first, I don't know if I'm going to like, because like at the beginning, it can be very overwhelming because it's like, here's a silencer and it's a white silencer or a green silencer, but this silencer is the exact same, but it has slightly different stats. The only reason I don't like this new system, like instead of just picking up silencers, I just unlock the ability to have silencers or whatever. The reason I don't like that is because at first it can be very overwhelming and it can just like take you by surprise. But what that takes away is the complexity of in-game loot. And so that's one thing, because making different builds or whatever, and I mean, that might be taken by, random rolls of guns. So I mean, they might still have the DNA of the attachments, but now it's just put into the gun itself. So that's one thing we're going to have to get back to, because I'm not sure. I have to agree where I don't like that, but we'll have to see how it goes. And yeah, as far as like skills or whatever, like so far I've gone a more attack route, but that's because you have the pulse and the shield. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go a little bit more attacky. So I have the drone and the chem launcher, and the chem launcher I have is the medical chem launcher. So I can heal you and send out my drone. And I really like that build so far. So I'm definitely interested to see just how far it goes, how deep it goes and everything.
Now, one thing I will say that's another thing I don't like is the apparel system.
Okay.
Whereas in, Division 1, you would encounter just an NPC, you would give them water or something, and they would give you a scarf or something like that. I liked that. That was cool. That added a lot of different options. I really don't feel like they give you a whole lot of options as far as appearance goes, in game. The only thing that I've seen so far is buying the outfits and the appearances off the store, and the only way you can do that is with premium currency. So that's something that you have to use microtransactions for. There's nothing that you can use in game to purchase those, which is unfortunate, but also I'm not going to go on a microtransaction rant, because those are 100% purely cosmetic.
Right. And that's obviously a good thing. We can't get advantages or anything like that. So, market. Where else do we want to go with this? Because I guess I'm running out of stuff to say without actually just talking about like the gameplay and stuff. Like, what else can we talk about?
We can finish it off with what we want to see, like what we want to see either later in game or what they change.
All right, I'll let you lead because I'm not sure where to go next. So
okay,
go ahead.
So to kind of finish it off, I wanted to ask you, Nick, is there anything in particular that you're seeing right now that you hope changes like mid-game or something like maybe there's something that's not working? Like you already gave one by saying they need to fix the amount of damage you're receiving.
Yes.
They need to change the ratio there. But is there anything that you're not super happy about now that you hope it gets better mid-game or you hope that they change?
That's hard. That's hard to tell. I mean, so far, because we are early enough in the game, the loot is flowing good at a good pace. I don't feel like, other than I do feel like I'm getting more armor pieces than gun pieces, or than guns, should I say. I do kind of feel like I would like some more guns, but it's still coming at a good enough pace where I don't have that problem. Gameplay wise is kind of the same way. Other than some technical issues, which we had a crash and that sucked or whatever, and we had some slowdowns during a mission where it was just a little jumpy, and it seemed like it was the mission itself, because as soon as we got back out to the real world or the open world, it fixed itself. It wasn't doing it anymore. So
I encountered that too. Like when I first played it, it was very choppy.
Yeah, so I mean, there's some technical sides of stuff, but nothing really sticks out to me as overtly negative where it's like they need to change this because this is game breaking. But also we are early enough in the game where we haven't really gotten into in game, we haven't gotten into PvP or the dark zone, which are two separate things. So yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to say right now. Do you have anything?
I already said mine pretty much of stuff that I want to see change a little bit in terms of like the perks and things like that. But what I will say is me and you are separate. I've had a separate experience. I'm getting more guns than equipment.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. And
so I guess the real question is, because this is kind of what I wanted to focus on, but the real question is that for somebody on the fence, what would convince them to play this game? What can you say about it that will convince, or I mean, we don't want to convince anybody who doesn't want to, but somebody who's on the fence, or somebody who played through the first one and kind of like you, Nate, how you didn't play through the entire thing. What's different about this game that, you know, they should definitely give it a try?
I'll repeat what I said at the top of this game. Definitely incentivizes you way more to play it and way more to get loot and grind. The grind.
So by how do they incentivize?
By changing the systems. So the grind in this game is not anywhere at all what it was in Division 1. I felt like the grind was me to get better guns so I can beat these missions. I don't feel like that in Division 2 at all. I feel like I'm beating the missions just fine, and when I get more guns, it just helps me even more. Like I'm not at a disadvantage not having fantastic guns like I was in Division 1. Like I couldn't play certain missions because I didn't have good enough guns. Like I just couldn't play the missions because I was just getting demolished.
So I think like one thing that we could say about that is that we don't see as many bullet sponge enemies. And that was definitely one thing, because it's a real world setting. Having a bullet sponge in a real world setting was very jarring for a lot of people. And I feel like they fixed that. Now it's not 100% fixed, but it's much, much better. For instance, most of the quote unquote bullet sponge enemies show it visually. Like, for instance, your purple enemies, they have more armor on. So the fact that they're taking more hits just makes sense visually. And then your yellow actually have armor pieces that will fall off. So that's definitely one thing that if you were on the fence about number one, because of those reasons, because of the bullet sponges, they're not gone by any means, but they're a lot less prevalent. They make more sense. Thank you. Yes, it makes a lot more sense as far as, you know, just the gameplay itself and how it feels to shoot somebody. They react a lot better, and it seems like you're actually doing damage to them, which is definitely one thing in the first one that I feel like a lot of people harped on, is the fact that, I'm just shooting and shooting and shooting.
There's also visual cues too, apart from armor actually breaking off, like hyenas, for example, the rushers. That's not their name, but that's what I'm going to call them. if you shoot them in the body, you're going to do more damage. If you shoot them in the head, that icon of like armor breaking will pop up showing, hey, you're not doing a whole lot of damage because they have face armor. So aim for the body.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's stuff like that.
Yeah. And I mean, just the gameplay in general, as far as what you mean by like incentivizing, it just seems like this is a feature full game. You know, instead of your Destiny 2 and your Anthem, where there just wasn't a lot to do aside from main missions and everything. So far, I've had enough keeping me busy where, like, we did the first in the stream, for instance, and the stream itself lasted almost like 5 or 6 hours, right? Like we went long.
It was about 3 or 4 hours. I think we started at like 9:16 and finished at like 12:30.
Yeah, I don't know. Either way, it was a really long time, but we didn't do a lot of main missions because we were just dicking off in the world, you know? So we were having a lot to do that we didn't have to. And it didn't feel like we were just like checking off icons on a map. It felt like we were naturally going through the world and just finding stuff to do.
Like we would go get loot.
Mm-hmm.
Like we would go get loot and then be like, oh, there's a control point nearby.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a lot more natural, and there's just more to do in general, whether that be in the open world or whether that be the missions themselves, feeling like they have more, like separating it from skill points to the, you know, the shed points or whatever. Like differentiating those missions really makes it so like, okay, what do I want to do next? Rather than the other one, which they still kind of gate certain things off with level. But in the first one, it was very much like, here's mission 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, so on. Whereas this one seems a little bit more like a choice, like, oh, I get to choose which mission I want to do. And
the focus is very much more isolated. Like, hey, look at this, instead of being like, hey, if you want to upgrade this part of the base, do this mission. If you want to upgrade that part of the base, do that. Like, it's giving you actual motivations to play these missions for your personal gain, not just for the gain of the world.
Absolutely. So, I mean, if you're on the fence, I mean, the least you can do is go to like a Redbox. Redbox has games now. Go check it out. You can talk to us. We have a couple of Xbox One players in our Discord. We have obviously us on PlayStation 4. We do have a couple of PC people as well. And, you know, get on our Discord. It's always on our, it's attached to the episode on Twitter, or it's in the description of the episode. You know, go on our Discord, find some people. I mean, because that's definitely one thing I'll say is that obviously you can solo this if you absolutely want to, Mr. Moriarty. But if you, I feel like I had 10 times more fun with you than when I tried to grind by myself.
See, I even had fun by myself just playing, and I feel like, because in Division 1, did you automatically matchmake? I feel like, no, you didn't?
No.
Okay. I felt like there were a lot of missions where I automatically did matchmake, and I was playing with them. But that's another thing. I thought
you had to queue yourself up.
You may. I think you did, but this also, I don't feel like I need to match up with anybody in the beginning part. Like, I feel like I could totally run through this solo way more than I could have in the first one. Now that might change mid game, because that's what happened in Division 1. Is mid game I really had to team up with people, so that might change. But it definitely, if you were like me and liked Division 1 but didn't love it and felt like it was just exhausting, Division 2 I think is going to be the game for you. They really did fix a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, let's put it this way. If you like the idea of a live service game, but you haven't been able to find a live service game that actually works, I feel like this is, and I was saying it earlier when we were talking about Borderlands 3, this is the new mark. If you don't meet the level of live service as Division 2, as far as feature complete, not, you know, like so far, you know, I can't tell that they've taken out chunks of the game so that they could use it in further things. Like, this is a full game, and then when we get bonus stuff, it's going to be bonus. It's not going to be the rest of the game. So if you like the idea of live service games, but you haven't been able to find an actual good live service game, this is it. It is a full game that you will also be able to play for months, because they're going to keep on giving you stuff. So that's what we'll say for the end of that. Mark?
So where do you want to go from here?
Yeah, we're going super long. So like Umbrella Academy, like how much do we want to go elaborate into that? We technically, like right now, as far as recording, we could still go on for another 15 minutes, and that would make it an hour and a half.
Which would you? We can't talk about both. Which would you rather talk about, Umbrella Academy or Death and Robots? Because I want to go very in depth with Umbrella Academy. Like I want to break it down.
How many of the stories have you seen?
I haven't seen any. So
what? Why?
Because I
hate you so much right now. It was so see, instead of that, you could have gotten through like 10 stories instead of Infinity War. You could have gotten through like 10 stories of the Love.
I know,
Death,
but
and
I didn't want to force myself to watch Love, Death, and Robots. My mind
you
was
don't
very
have to though. It's so good from the first one that you'll just naturally watch the next one, watch the next one, watch the next one. And they are so varied as far as like their art styles. It's just like it's these nice little like mini movies. Each one just oh my god, I fucking hate you so bad right now. Well, I guess that answers the question. We're obviously doing Umbrella. Fucking asshole. I guess that'll be my pick of the week is go watch Love, Death, and Robots. So,
okay.
Fucking asshole. I hate you so much right now. Okay. You want to mark it again?
Yep.
All right, so that's pretty much what we've been doing gaming-wise. Now, series-wise, we both got through Umbrella Academy. Give me an overall what you thought about it. We won't go into specifics yet. We want to warn people when we go into specifics.
Overall, it was definitely an interesting experience.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it from start to finish, but man, the first couple episodes where you don't know what's going on, it's not hard, but it's kind of like, okay, like what is going on? Like I had that conversation with myself a couple of times. Like, I like this. I like what I'm watching, but what is going on? When they finally start answering stuff, which they answer pretty fast, it was definitely a snowball effect. The farther it got, the more like, okay, all right. But I mean, it's enjoyable from the beginning, but it's one of those that after finishing it, I look at those episodes in a different light now. Like now that I know the context of everything, I feel like I can go back and watch and have a much more enjoyable experience.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing I love about it the most is how much it doesn't hold back. This is a weird show and it's not afraid of that. You know, even with like Captain America, Iron Man, and just other comic book related properties, they usually try to modernize it or they try to make it different. Whereas this, it's weird and it owns that. Like another really good example is Runaways. It's a Hulu series, and I feel like they modernized it and they changed it so much that it's not really anything like the comics, other than here are characters that are similar to the characters in the comic. Whereas this, it owns its weirdness and it wears it on its sleeve, and it's completely okay with being weird and comic booky, because that's another thing. Like a lot of comic book materials try to make it as mainstream as possible, whereas this, it's weird. It's a comic book. If you didn't know that, you're gonna find out pretty freaking soon.
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't hold back. Like I think that the adaptation of this from comic book to TV is very true. I mean, it's one of those that I've never seen something transition so well in terms of style, in terms of content, in terms of just the actual heart of it, as well as I've seen with Umbrella Academy from the comics to the Netflix show.
Yeah.
You can see a lot of love.
I love that. I love that there's this talking monkey and nobody addresses the fact that there's a talking monkey, which makes sense because they've lived with the talking monkey since they were little. So of course they wouldn't address the situation, but at any other grounded, either they wouldn't have the monkey at all, or they would have changed him in some way or whatever. And that's another thing. From episode 1, I could tell that they were taking this serious. This wasn't just another Netflix series. This was like the production quality. This is how I tried to sell it to you, because I watched it before you, but I tried to sell it to you in the sense that from the very first episode, I could tell that they put a lot into it as far as either money or effort, because the monkey, remind me his name, Pogo. Pogo. Okay, yeah. I almost wanted to say Pojo, but I'm like, that's not right. So Pogo, the monkey, the graphics and the special effects that they put into that monkey is almost the same quality that they do in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
Very much so. The motion capture.
Hold on, Mark. Hey, baby.
Where you go?
You're going. Come here.
We're going to the park.
Come here. I get a hug and I get a kiss, okay? Mwah. Give me a kiss on the lips, silly. Mwah. I love you. Love you.
She won't move.
Mwah. I love you, baby.
Let me too.
I thought you guys already were gone. No? Oh, you just were being very quiet. Thank you. Doesn't help now that you fucking bother me, but you know. She must not have heard me because usually she would quit back. Okay, sorry, go on. Motion capture is, you might want to start over, I guess, since I interrupted you.
Yeah, I mean the motion capture, the just visual CGI, it's not something you see in a Netflix show. Now, I feel like that term's going to go away really quickly because Umbrella Academy, to start, is, I think, a new evolution in Netflix shows.
I hope so.
And now it's something, if you didn't know, this went through development hell for a while. Umbrella Academy did. They were trying to find a studio to do a movie adaptation and switch to TV. And so it went through a little bit until it finally found its home on Netflix. But I think that it being on Netflix was the perfect decision. Because Netflix has always been the type to, hey, we're definitely for going against the status quo. Let's do something different. And this show is the definition of doing something different.
Yeah, doing something against the mainstream, against the status quo, you know. And I mean, going back to the special features, it's like if you see something on NBC, it's like the special effects are very, you know, okay, yes, this is on NBC. Sci-Fi, they almost have their own style of CG. You know what I mean? Like their CG and their special effects are very kind of sci-fi and like, okay, yeah, this is definitely something. And it's like, you can tell that, yes, they spent money on it. Even the really good ones, it's like, yes, you can tell they spent money on it, but maybe they just didn't spend time on it. You know what I mean? Whereas this is very much, they spent the money and the time. Because sometimes that's just as important as how much, you know, dollars you just throw at it, is how much time you spend on each like hair follicle of the freaking chimpanzee. It's just like, oh my God, it's just, oh, it's so much good. It's like if they would have came out and said that they had Andy Serkis come and help them with it, I wouldn't be surprised because he did the Mowgli. So if they told me that Andy Serkis came by and they're like, okay, this is what you need to change that. If they would tell me that, I wouldn't be surprised at all, honestly.
I agree. Yeah. Now, do you want to get into spoilers?
Yeah. So we're going to talk about more specifics. So for anybody who has not watched the movie, and if anybody who has not seen the show, this is the time to go ahead and skip forward. We'll make sure to put it in the timestamps, like here's where you need to skip to. So this is done, and I'm talking for a long time just so that if you're in your car, you can get to your thing and skip forward. That's why I'm talking for so long. So let's get into the more specifics about it and the more like nitty gritty of it. You think that's long enough?
Yeah. All right. We're starting spoilers now.
Okay. Oh my God. So, I mean, definitely one thing that is the hook of the entire season, obviously, is the fact that the world's going to end. And so now they have to figure out a way to stop it. But the mystery behind it takes a while. It takes almost the entire season because this is very much a getting the band back together, you know, thing, which of course I bitched about that for Avengers, but it's different when it's a series, obviously, because, you know, they have a lot more time for like character development and everything.
Right, I agree. That's part of my frustration with the first part of the series.
Yes,
first part of the season is like it gives you, but it doesn't give you an explanation, you know, and it's annoying at first, kind of, and then when you get deeper into it, it makes much more sense. Because if you look at it in the lens of nobody knows what's going on, not even number 5. When you look at it in that light, it's like, oh, that kind of makes sense why we're not getting a whole lot of exposition on, you know, what's going on. But let me ask you, towards the last half of the season, when we really started getting into the end of the world stuff, where did you think it was going to go?
I mean, I thought they were going to save the world. Big spoiler there. I thought they were going to actually save it. And so them having to do, them having to basically go back in time, I did not see that coming. For sure, especially since they have to go and when they do it, they go back to their, kid form or whatever. I'm like, damn, like
I'll get into that. I'll get into that in a second too, because I have a point on that. But what did you think was going to start the apocalypse? When it kind of started to explain,
yeah. I definitely thought that. Well, first off, what's Ellen Page's character's number? Something with a V. Vanya. I wanted to say Violet because it was, very similar. But Vanya not having special powers, that didn't fool me. That did not fool me from day one.
Right. That's another thing about the show is nothing fools you. Like for me, there's only one episode where I didn't know what was going to happen. Like there was for all I was like, okay, I know it's going to happen. Like when we meet Leonard Peabody for the first time, I'm like, something's not right about this guy.
Oh,
Something is not right. But then the next episode, when they start to grow their relationship, I'm like, oh, maybe that's different. And then the next episode, nope, it's not different. It's not different.
It's not.
So that is one thing. But what I'll say about that is the journey is what's so interesting. Like, like the Notebook, for example. Yeah. I say that because when my wife and I first got together, she wanted to watch the Notebook. And within 5 minutes, I was like, oh, so is this what's happening? And I explain it. And she goes, I don't even want to watch this movie anymore. So I knew it was coming, but after she actually made me sit down and watch it again, and the journey was what I enjoyed, even though I knew what the destination was going to be. So that's very much the show.
Yeah. I mean, like, I definitely didn't know it was going to be Vanya the end of the world. And then when we did start having him try to train her, then I'm like, oh, she's going to end the world. So, I mean, it was about halfway through that I did find out, okay, it's going to be her, because they try to set it up at first. You don't see her body amongst the remains or whatever. And you're just like, well, yeah, she doesn't have powers. Why would she be there? But then it's like, oh, it's because it's her, and he's trying to train her. And you think it's going to be him that convinces her to do it, but it's actually him getting killed. That's like that part, because you were talking about it in our pre-show or post-show last episode or something, and you were very much like, oh my god, what's her face just died, and I can't wait to see where they take this character. And I'm like, dude, watch the first 5 minutes of the next episode.
Yeah, that was another thing. That was the first time in a while where I visually and physically felt and made a movement. Like whenever they're having that exchange, which was very passionate, like Ellen Page just screaming at her, and like she finally goes, don't, like I could feel the emotion swelling up where she's like, don't make me do it. And then when she says, I heard a rumor, and she slices her throat, I actually went, oh
yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. And like that was set and done so well. And then story-wise, I think it's she, spoilers again, she survives, but I like how they take that power away from her, where they're like, her vocal cords are completely damaged, which makes her powerless, which makes her kind of have to change who she is as a person. Now, going back to what I asked you, I sent you a text message watching episode 8 or 9, and I was like, okay, I'm just confused on where this is going. So what I meant by that was, when they got the note from the commission saying protect Harold Jenkins, and they showed the exposition of who Harold Jenkins was, I'm like, okay, this guy starts the apocalypse. And then when he's training Vanya, I'm like, well, how? Like, I know this guy's goal isn't to start the apocalypse. I know this guy's goal is to kill the Umbrella Academy. So what is it? Like, that's what I was confused about, especially whenever she killed him and she went back to the academy. I was like, so what's happening? Like, and storytelling, it's kind of a trope, but I like how the episode before last, they were like, oh, well, we stopped the end of the world. What are we going to do now? I liked that little bit of back and forth. And then going into the final episode, here's where time travel is very tricky, and time travel and storytelling is very tricky. If she would have, if she would have just killed the academy when she caused the building to collapse, and that's how they died, and she just went on with her recital, how would she have ended the world?
That's a good point. Yeah.
What ended the world was them trying to stop her and them stopping her from using her power and causing that beam of energy to shoot into the moon. That's what caused the apocalypse.
Right.
So if my whole thing is if the Umbrella Academy just sat there and did nothing, would the apocalypse have happened?
Yeah, I don't know. That's that's where it really does get a little tricky as far as, I don't know, like, because she did seem kind of murder happy when she was on her way to her recital.
Right, but I don't think she would have ended the world like so first off, I love how they ended the world. I didn't know how they were going to, but when they did that thing when she shot that into the moon, I was like, oh, light bulb, that makes 100% sense. That makes 100% sense. If she would have just gone on with her recital, yeah, she may have wiped out like the city or maybe a city block, but I don't think herself could have done something enough to end the world the way they show it, like when Five jumps to the future, it's desolate on fire like the moon crashed into the world.
Yep, definitely.
So it's one of those things, like, of course it can't be a show if they just sit back and do nothing.
Right, of course, yeah.
But what I think I really loved, and I said this to you on stream, and I don't think you understood what I was saying. There are some things that, especially in the last episode, that they don't answer. They don't answer at all. They don't answer how Ben died. They don't answer that whole thing that they showed with Hargreaves, like that flashback. Like, what the fuck was that?
What do you mean? Which flashback?
In the beginning of episode 10, where it shows him with his wife's deathbed, and he opens the window and there's missiles coming out of the sky, and he opens his mason jar full of these like floating fairy looking things and lets them out. What was that? And obviously,
I honestly have no idea what you're talking about.
It's in the beginning of episode 10. Like it starts in the past. It's like years ago. And it shows when he immigrates to the US and like he sees the umbrella shop and he buys the umbrella shop, and that becomes the Umbrella Academy. What they're showing there is like, oh, Hargreaves is really old. Like this was in like the 1920s, but I guess also it doesn't really give you a point of time. It doesn't tell you what year it is. So
yeah.
But anyway, go back and watch the beginning of episode 10 because
I honestly have no idea what you're talking about.
I have no idea what's going on in that scene. It looks like to me, if I could speculate, it seems like he might be in some ways a part of the commission, or he may be a being like the commission where he doesn't exist in any point in time. Because that scene in particular, when he opens that window, you've got missiles flying out of the sky like someone's launching nukes, and it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But I didn't think that this series was going to answer everything in season 1, and I think they very much did a fantastic job of setting up a season 2, especially with the idea of, at the end, whenever he decides to take everyone back in time. I didn't know what he meant. I didn't know, like, if he was saying like, hey, let's go back and let's try this again. What I think they're doing, and what I think is going to happen in season 2, is we're going to see them as kids. We're going to actually see them as kids, not as adults who are just completely messed up dysfunctional family. I think that they're going to go as their former selves and try to change everything, which I think is going to be super fascinating. But what I said to you that I don't think made sense to you is this is the first time I'm watching an adaptation of something that I want to immediately go read the comic of or the book of to get the answer to, because I want these questions answered. I kind of don't wait to see it on Netflix. I want to know. I want to get the answers that I'm seeking right now.
Yeah,
it made me want to do that.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I feel like they did a really good job of just like, really making me want to see the next season, but not in a frustrating way at all. Like what they didn't answer wasn't so like important necessarily. Like obviously there were some important things, but they need to leave those breadcrumbs there. But it was enough where I was very excited to see. Now I think one of the most interesting things that they did, and it was almost like, oh, come on. But one of the most interesting things they did is they had the one episode where, the ape guy, he finds out that he was up in the moon for no reason, and then he ends up dancing with the girl, and they end up kissing, and then 5 goes back in time, and it literally reverses time, and I'm like, oh my god! But it was such an interesting way of doing it, because then we see the same things start to happen, but a completely different way. And it also puts a really interesting, as far as like time is relative, quote unquote, because as 5 was doing his stuff, time was still technically going forward, because he hadn't, this is the confusing part. Time was still going forward because he hadn't gone back to that particular time where everybody's in the living room and they're talking, and that's when he gets back. So time is relative, as far as like he was doing his stuff back in time, and and he did the whole Hindenburg thing, and he shot up a bunch of people or whatever, and he blew up, but that was happening at the same time everything else was happening. So then when he decided to go forward to the part where they're meeting in the living room, he had to basically, all that didn't happen, but the way they showed that was really interesting.
As a viewer too, it gave you a opposite reaction too. Like, you see that happen, you see her go ahead and find that journal and maybe start to question what he's really doing. You see, you see Luther and Allison finally having this resolution to this lifelong love that they've had, and it finally comes to a head. Then 5 goes back in time, and then time continues on, and you have the antithesis of them having that connection to him finding her basic.
Like, you have the information, but the characters don't, and you're like, oh, this is what could have been. Right. So Viola, god dang it, Vanya found out that he was a bad guy, but then we go back in time to where she didn't know he was a bad guy, but we as the audience do know. And to see that, it was just such an interesting thing that I haven't really seen any show do before.
Well, yeah, for me, what I took away from it the most was seeing them finally be in love and confirming their love, to jumping to, oh no, I'm finding her dead, basically, and I'm like heartbroken. As a viewer, that hit me a lot. They showed you both sides.
Yeah.
Which was very well done.
Yeah, it was just such an interesting way of doing it, and just like, it's so cool, because like usually when time travel is involved, it's very much when they go back in time, they're confirming what already happened, basically. Like in Terminator 3.
Oh, don't get me started on Terminator.
I'm just saying, let me get there. She says every night, oh. So, but let me get there. No, Terminator 3, they don't stop Judgment Day. They just make sure that they survive Judgment Day. So most of the time when time travel is another really good, Prisoner of Azkaban. In that one, they don't stop the events from happening. They make sure that they happen. And in fact, the Bureau in the show, they don't stop events. They make sure that the events happen. So it's funny to see something completely different, where these events did happen, but now we see them happen again, but in completely different ways. And I've never seen that, because that's usually how time travel works, is that they don't actually change anything because it's already happened. So to see something like that and they actually reverse time is just such an interesting concept.
Yeah. And it's one of those that, and they bring it up a lot in the show, like especially the commission. They're like, look, anything that is going to happen will happen. There's nothing you can do to stop it, which they do confirm. But like you're saying, it's the way they handle it. Now, the way I want to finish this off is, who is your favorite character and least character so far?
Let's see. That's a hard one. See, I'm really bad with names. I don't know why, but
give me the.
I really am. But who's the ape guy?
Luther.
I think Luther is my favorite because of the change that he had to go through. He was very much, I'm on dad's side. I'm dad's soldier. And so the change that he has to go through, as far as, he finds out he went to the moon for nothing. He was there because his dad was ashamed of what he did to him and he wanted to give him purpose, but he couldn't do that here on Earth or something. I think he was my favorite, and I guess my least favorite, I don't know. That's hard. That's the hard one because everybody has such an interesting, like, especially like, damn it, who's the druggie?
Klaus.
See, my problem is I'm always close to the name, but I know that it's wrong. And so, like Violet, like I know that's not right, but for some reason it's close enough where I think it's right for a millisecond. Anyways, so Klaus, him going back in time to freaking Vietnam and falling in love with somebody, that was such an interesting story arc. And even when you find out what I know a rumor girl, when you find out what she does, it's really everybody has a really good arc, and I feel like you don't see that a lot in series. Usually somebody gets left behind, somebody doesn't receive as good of an arc. I guess the only one that really doesn't have as good of an arc is the Blade guy, so I guess I would say him, even though yes, he decides not to kill her at the very end or whatever, but I still feel like it wasn't as revelational as most everybody else's story arc. So I would say that probably.
So for me, I think Klaus is going to be my favorite character. And I think what cemented that was that episode where he went back to Vietnam.
Yes.
And mostly the way they told the story of him leaving with the briefcase and then him coming back on the same bus, completely like distraught and bloodied, and like him breaking the briefcase and then seeing that happen, that cemented him as one of my favorite characters. And then especially him getting into the arc of being sober. That was one of those. Oh, and talking about that scene of going back in time when he finally saw Dave, and then that was taken away from him, and he couldn't do it again. Oh, that broke my heart.
Oh yeah, and see, that was another interesting thing as far as like he went back in time, but we didn't get to see what happened back in time, and it was really just through the way he was acting and the little flashbacks. But it wasn't like a lot of other series, what they'll do is they'll have a whole episode like dedicated to that back in time thing, and I'm glad that they didn't do that, and instead they just went with a really interesting story.
Yeah, I think my least favorite character is number 5. I think number 5 is a prick. I really do.
I can agree with that. I can agree with that now that you say it, because
he's integral in the story 100%, but he's just an asshole. Like he's just an asshole.
Yeah, it's like people ask him a question and he's like, that's irrelevant. It's like Isaac from the Orville, like he's like, oh, that's illogical, and he just says it because he's a robot. But it's like, I don't like it when Isaac does it, but it makes sense because he's a freaking robot. But meanwhile, you have this character who's a human being, but he's acting like, oh, that's irrelevant. It's like, it would take you like 2 seconds to explain, why are you being stupid?
Yeah,
and characters like that, I'll agree, I don't like.
And number 5, I really didn't think had a like, well, with all the other characters, you had your likes with them and your dislikes. I never really liked number 5. Nothing about him in season 1. I was like, oh, you have a good resolution. Like,
I don't know, Dolores. Dolores was
even
a really
Dolores,
interesting
man. Like the when we see who Dolores is, yes, I enjoyed that as him as an adult. I enjoyed, but him, I guess because he went back in time and he's a kid again and he's very grumpy, I guess that explains it. But like his whole story arc as an adult, I really enjoyed. Now, I do want to give an honorable mention to Hazel. Hazel is a character that I enjoyed his arc from start to finish. I enjoyed him as an actor because he did a phenomenal job in Mindhunter playing, Ed Keene, I think was his name, or Ed Kemp. It was either Ed Keene or Ed Kemp. And he played he wanted this role a lot, and he really did it very well. But Hazel, like from the beginning, I found him funny. I found him really relatable. And then his whole arc to the conclusion, like the scene whenever they were at the theater and he was like, there's Vanya. And then he goes, oh, well, here's your stop, and speeds up and projects her out of the car and then goes back and kills the handler. I was like, oh, that was so satisfying.
Yeah,
so satisfying.
Definitely. And then especially since the world ends and they're just like kissing each other, that was nice. So I guess Mark, are we pretty much done? We're pretty much done with that one, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's go. Yeah, I mean, so we would love to hear what your guys' thoughts are on Umbrella Academy. Have you seen it? Obviously, if you're listening to the spoilers, but if you listen to the spoilers, let us know what you thought about it. But also, this will be the good time mark for you to come back. So hopefully you're back and you're listening to us, and let us know. Are you going to watch it? If you have seen the first couple of episodes, what do you think so far? Let us know. You can go to Twitter or Gmail and everything. So let us know. Next up, we're going to be doing our picks of the week. All right, so picks of the week. This is where we just pick something for a week, and we let you know what we've been not apart from Weekly Grind. Obviously, that's what we've been doing. This is kind of an option to say these are our recommendations. These are what we think you should watch. Which I guess Weekly Grind does that too, but just go with it, okay?
This is just more like an ending thing. It's not. We're not having a conversation about it.
This is your homework assignments for the week, people. All right, Nate, you want to start us off?
Yes. So mine is one of the best internet videos I've seen in a long, long time. It comes from Nerdist. And what it is it is a parody for Shallow from A Star is Born called A Star Wars is Born.
Yeah. So I can attest to this. I've already done my homework. And yes, it's a pretty good video.
Well, so first off, it's a very good parody song. Like it's not badly done. It's like quality, like the song. It's really good, and it also just it's a 1-for-1 very funny parody of that song. In the video and in the actual music of it, it from the beginning, I'm like, oh, this is enjoyable. Like it's still enjoyable to listen to. I saw it and I watched it 3 times in a row. I was in tears. I was laughing so hard at it. It's very much very good job from Nerdist.
Good job, everybody.
And it's called A Star Wars is Born on Nerdist on YouTube.
Yep, very good. Yeah, I can attest to that. Another thing which I'm legit pissed off that Nate didn't do what I told him to, which is to watch Love, Death and Robots. From the it's an anthology, so it's basically like the Animatrix, where each one is a different story, different art style and everything. But oh my god, the biggest negative that I could say about it is that each one could be its own movie, and I just want to see more of each story. That's the negative. And if that's the negative, it has to be pretty good, right? Yeah, I mean, it's like Castlevania Season 1. All you wanted was more, you know what I mean? But each one of these, the longest each one lasts is about, 14 to 15 minutes. But each one has a really good, it sets up the world pretty fast. It's like boom, boom, boom. It's a very much just this nice little short film that you get. And I like each one. I have not seen one that I don't like. There is one that is very weird as far as the point of it is just kind of oh, okay. But the art style kind of makes up for it. In A Scanner Darkly, where they basically took the footage and they just made it cell shaded. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It's something similar. I can't tell. I genuinely can't tell sometimes. Sometimes it's super obvious, but I genuinely can't tell sometimes when it's CG versus when it's a real life person. And they just have, I guess, the body, there are certain elements of the body that is a real person's body, and then there are certain cell shaded around the nipple there's these little circles, and I'm okay, so that's just the artistic side. And then her face in particular is real, but then you see her butt and it's that's a real person's butt, or that's a real person's coat. I don't know, that it's such an interesting art style, so it sort of makes up for the fact that the story itself is kind of just an excuse to see boobs and stuff. But it's still such an interesting. And then there's this one, oh my god, there's this one where it's basically they're on this farm, and then there's these insectoid creature, alien creatures that go and try to kill their cows. And that entire thing, all I could think is, I want this game. I want this game. It needs to be a game. It needs to be like a tower defense, mech defense game, and I want it. I want this. Please make this into a video game.
I mean, I haven't heard a better reason to watch this show than what you're giving right now.
Yeah. Oh, and I mean, there's this one, it's on a space station, and it's like it's a mind game. He ends up seeing the quote unquote real world and how it actually looks, and I'm like, oh my God. Oh, another thing to really point out about this is that it is brutal. It is brutal. The very first one is essentially Pokemon for adults, and it is gory as crap. There are giblets, and there is blood, and oh my God. And a lot of the different storylines have very, very extremely gory stuff happen, and you see some cock. I'm gonna throw it out there. You see some penis, and if you are uncomfortable with penis, then you might be uncomfortable with parts of this show, because they'll just show a penis because they feel like it, really. Like it's not adding anything to the story other than, yeah, that's what a penis looks like.
Penis for a penis.
Yeah, I mean, like there's so many like movies where it's like there'll be a reason for the nudity, and in this one, like that'll okay, so there is a negative. There's nudity for nudity's sake, and I don't normally like that. But considering that this is very much, it's called Love, Death, and Robots, like I could see like that's what they were going for. Like they were just going for like a raw, uncut look at certain things, and I really like that. But I mean, back to what I was saying before, I haven't seen one that I hate. I haven't seen one that I'm just like, I don't like that, because even if it's not good, the art style kind of makes up for it. So I challenge you, go to our Discord, go to our Twitter. I challenge you, tell me which one you don't like. It is a challenge, because they're just all so good, and they're also bite-sized too. So like I was up till 1 because my daughter was, having a night and she didn't really want to go to bed. So I'm like, you know what, let's go watch, which of course I'm watching this with my 3-year-old, but she doesn't understand what a penis is. So, but it was just so enjoyable just watching one after another, and each one just being as interesting as the last, and as varied as the last, and as well told as the last. And I mean, even in Animatrix is a really good example, because it's very much like the Animatrix. Even in the Animatrix, there was a couple that I'm just like, I don't like this, please move on. Whereas in this, very opposite. I loved every single moment of it. So that's my recommendation. That's your homework for the week. Go, and I challenge you, find one that you don't like. I mean, let's just that's the homework for the week. That is our picks of the week. Thank you so much, Nate, for joining us.
Oh, you're very, very much welcome.
And I mean, that third chair, we always like you, Wind. Yeah. Some really controversial stuff that you've been talking about, and honestly, we're gonna have to censor a lot of what you said. You might not even be in the episode because of how much we didn't like your opinion. So, but maybe we'll have you on again. We'll see. All right, and thank you guys so much for joining us for this episode of Nerd to the Third, where you can always talk nerdy to me. I swear, no matter how much I try to make it kind of loud, my talk nerd, like just looking at the waveforms, go ahead and stop, by the way. My waveforms are always like half as big as the previous sentence. And so I'm always worried, like, can you hear me when I say that? There's been a couple of times I've straight up had to make it louder, because obviously I want there to be music and shit. All right. I told the lady 1:30 is when we would start my time, because we need a little bit of a break, because that was long. We had a meeting that went for a while, then we recorded for almost 2 freaking hours. So I mean, I told her 1:30. Is that okay with you? I know you said 1, but I mean, we need to have a little bit of a break.
Well,
do you want to say 1 and we'll start at 1? Because Hubcast usually never takes that long.
So I'm in here. Hold on, let me stop the broadcast.